do you love about Oliver Stone? Because I noticed
Courage.
that you put up a picture of yourself. You met the man himself a while back, from what I saw.
I
Uh,
had a one-on-one meeting with him.
what really?
Yeah, it was surreal.
Wow.
I had my tongue stuck in my throat. I mean, he's the reason why I became a filmmaker. I hadn't made one film yet,
Yeah.
and I met with him, and I remember I was just so tongue-tied that I had to write out like a letter so I could read it like a speech. I don't think I've ever done that before for a one-on-one meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, why in the world is a three-time Oscar winner meeting with me?
Yeah.
I mean, this is how it happened. I was an extra on World Trade Center, the movie
Uh-huh.
with Nicolas Cage about 9/11. And I remember the only reason why I was an extra on that is I got my Screen Actors Guild card
Mhm.
was to meet Oliver. And you're not allowed to go up to these A-list stars and directors. They could kick you off the set.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not allowed to do that. Now, Oliver's one of these true underdogs that doesn't go by the rules. So one day during a break, Oliver's over at the craft service table by himself. I mean, there's not even his assistant is with him. I mean, that's the kind of guy Oliver is.
Yeah.
He's just one of those types of unorthodox underdogs. I mean, I don't think you would see Barry Sonnenfeld do that. I don't think you would see Adrian Lyne do that. People like that. I don't know. I'm just naming some directors off the top of my head. So Oliver's there, and I said, I'll use one of his lines from the movie Wall Street. Life comes down to a few moments. Here's one of them. So I said, if I don't go up to him now,
Mhm.
then I may never get another opportunity. So I went up to him. I introduced myself. I had to be careful to see if other people were watching. I'm sure they were, but I didn't care. If I got thrown off the set, then I got thrown off the set. And I told him, that you're the reason why I want to become a filmmaker. And maybe it didn't hurt that I'm Korean because his wife's Korean. Yeah,
Okay.
little thing like that.
Yeah.
So it was quick. And then afterwards, I saw his son, Sean, on the set. Sean is he went to Yale, a very smart guy. Sean, I think, is in his 30s now. Back then he was in his 20s, and I gave Sean a note to deliver to Oliver. And then, incredibly, a few days later, Oliver's assistant called me and said, "Oliver would like to meet you. Why don't you just come to this hotel he's staying at in Manhattan, and he'll meet you in the
What?
lobby, and you guys can
Wow.
talk."
Yeah.
So I went there. I gave him a script that I wrote about sports gambling, and he actually read the script and wrote a whole critique for me like months later. And since then, I've been wanting to contact him again, and it'd be tremendous if we worked on a project together because Oliver's doing documentaries now.
Yeah.
He just did a movie about Putin. I think he's done movies about Fidel Castro, and
Yeah. I saw the one where he hit up a bunch of Latin American um, presidents,
yeah,
or right, and I forgot what it was called, south of the border or something like that. But I did see that, like I saw it one time years ago, and I'm like, oh, Oliver Stone's doing documentaries these days. And so I kind of wondered if it was just kind of like a one or two movie thing, or if that was like his new kick.
yeah. I mean, I think yeah, documentaries. He's done a few lately. I don't know if it's become his permanent thing. Something tells me no. I
Yeah.
mean, he did do a movie about Snowden,
Yeah.
and that was not a documentary, although it could have been. So he's really lately shown this tendency to zero in on one compelling figure and go deep into his life.
Yeah.
And I mean, Oliver, what can you say? I mean, he wrote Midnight Express, my favorite all-time movie,
Yeah.
uh, about the kid from Long Island who tried to smuggle hash out of Turkey. That didn't go well. He wrote Scarface. Um, Al Pacino's probably his best role. It's close, either that or Dog Day Afternoon. So, I mean, here's a man that you don't watch Oliver's movies, you feel them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that that's a great way to put it. I've never heard, you just had gave me a deer in the headlights type of a feeling right now, because that's so true. I remember seeing Born on the Fourth of July very young, definitely Natural Born Killers. definitely JFK. And I just remember thinking that the way that these topics would be laid out on the screen, and then of course the visuals and the editing style was something that I really dove into. Like, how did he do that cut, or how did he do this thing with the camera, or and that's where I went a little OCD back in the VHS days, when you'd have to rewind and rewind to see how did he do that? How did he do that? How did he do that? And so that's it was a feeling. It was a feeling that came off of those Oliver Stone movies, like, this is politics, this is socioeconomic topics, but at the same time, there's a lot of emotion that's transmitted in these movies.
Yeah,
Um,
you said the key word for Oliver, emotion. I
yeah,
mean, his
yeah.
screenplays, the words just jump off the page.
Mhm.
I mean, Wall Street, what a biting script that was. His father was a stockbroker on Wall Street. That's why he wrote that script. And
Really, I didn't know that.
I really encourage people to Google Oliver Stone on YouTube and just listen to the way he speaks. I've
Yeah,
never in my life heard an artist more eloquent than Oliver Stone. His vocabulary really
yeah,
struck me. The way he speaks really struck me. The man's intelligence. I mean, he can go from like boom, topic to topic. He could talk about everything about Richard Nixon to Wall Street. He did a football movie called Any Given Sunday.
yeah,
I mean, here's a guy whose range is just so unlimited, and you become so inspired by his depth, his intelligence, the substance in his vocabulary. Here's a guy that served on the front line in Vietnam. He
yeah.
won Purple Hearts. I mean, this is not your average guy walking down the street, and it's amazing all the criticism he's taken. I think from cowards who don't
Mhm.
have half the balls and guts he has to put some of the most ferocious topics on screen.
Yeah.
And he's paid a dear price in the media. A lot of people have gone after him, and he has to stay true to himself and keep doing what he's doing. I mean, he's nobody's fool. He's a three-time Oscar winner. He went to Yale. I mean, this guy is one of the smartest human beings I've ever heard talk. Again, I encourage everyone to YouTube and Google Oliver Stone and just watch one of his interviews with Charlie Rose. Now, I know Charlie Rose turned out to be a dirtbag,
Yeah.
but back in the day, I mean, when Rose and Stone talk, it's almost like you don't mind being a fly on the wall because they both know a lot. And
I'll look it up, man. I'll look it up, because I mean, that's I have to remind myself pretty often that, when you sit down at the YouTubes, you can learn a lot of things from, just hearing people talk, like whether it's, how to make an independent film with no money, or stuff like that, filmmaking topics and whatnot. So I'll definitely look up Oliver Stone and Charlie Rose. So you met the guy, and then take me through kind of like a fast forward. You got to a point, Charlie, of saying, like, after you met Mr. Oliver Stone, like, you got to a point of just saying, like, all right, screw it, like, now's my time to jump in, or when was that crossover point between Oliver Stone and jumping into your career?
I'll tell you exactly when it was. It was the summer of 2009.
Mhm.
I reached like a fork in the road in my career. I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't fulfilled. I was pretty much unemployed. I had burned out. I'd worked on the news for 10 years and I needed another direction. I needed a spark. And out of nowhere, summer 2009, I said to myself, I'm going to go to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and make a movie about the unsolved Las Cruces bowling alley massacre. It's the largest unsolved mass shooting in the nation today. Now, let me just rewind just for a bit. The year before, I was trying to make a movie about the Ray Boom Boom Mancini Dooku Kim fight. That was the saddest day in pro sports history, where Dooku Kim died literally in the ring.
Right.
He had a cerebral hemorrhage and he died. The referee committed suicide because he felt he should have stopped the fight sooner. Um, Dooku Kim's mom committed suicide. She swallowed pesticide because she was so distraught over losing her only son. Boxing went from 15 rounds to 12 because of that fight. and boxing no longer was on free TV. It had to go to cable like HBO, pay-per-view, because of that one fight. And I think people should Google that story, the Ray Boom Boom Mancini Dooku Kim fight from November 1982, Caesar's
Wow.
Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada. That would have been one of the most compelling documentaries if I was able to get control of that film, that story. I had dinner with Ray Mancini in Santa Monica, but it didn't work out. You know, most movies that you want to make don't get made for whatever the reason. They just don't. And then all eyes were on Las Cruces, New Mexico. The arrow pointed towards Las Cruces, and I heard about the bowling alley massacre on Unsolved Mysteries. It was also on America's Most Wanted. I brought that film to the Spectrum Harkins Theater in Tucson, I-19 in Irvington,
Mhm.
and that movie was sold to Lionsgate, and I was off to the races. So I hope people will go on that website, bowlingmassacre.com. I warn you, it's very graphic. I'm one of the few directors that shows actual crime scene video in my movies. I'll never forget, there was a former news director in Tucson that once said to me, Charlie, I've never seen a movie where I've seen actual crime scene video before, and I've seen a lot of news.
Yeah.
So that's what I do in my movies. I keep it brutally real. I think transparency is important. Obviously, honesty, accuracy, nailing the story, getting it absolutely right, getting compelling interviews, hearing from people that you never heard from before. And I think that's what makes a great documentary. Obviously, editing, pace, tone, music, uh, atmosphere, all that plays a key role. Pacing. So that movie, I would say, I've always said in life, we're all meant to do one thing. Michael Jordan was meant to play basketball.
Yeah.
Mario Lemieux was born to play hockey. Um, Oliver Stone was meant to direct movies.
Yeah.
I think I was put on this earth to make A Nightmare in Las Cruces. If there's one thing, so I think we all know what that one thing is that you were put on this earth to do. And for me, it was to make A Nightmare in Las Cruces. That was my first film.
Yeah.
And 30 films later, 10 years later, I feel good about where I am.
Good. And you know what? I just got to say this, Charlie. You know what I find admirable about what you just said is, um, I think it's okay. And actually, on one of the previous interviews that I did, actually almost 2 weeks ago now, I think it's okay to be multifaceted, multidimensional. Like, for example, I'm a cameraman, but I'm also an editor, but I'm also a director, and and a writer. But like honestly, those four things are probably the only four. Anything beyond that, I need help, right? But the thing is that I look at other people around me, and with regards to myself, I always think, okay, well, I've always done, filmmaking. Filmmaking's I've expressed interest in many other areas of life, but filmmaking has always been my number one passion since literally the age of 14. And I just gravitated to it. And so I look at other people and I think, well, they do five different things, like maybe somebody's in a rock band and they're an actor, and they also sell homes, and they do like literally multiple things. And a piece of me says, am I behind because I'm not doing multiple things? And should I be feeling bad because I'm not doing multiple things? I've wondered that before in the past. And honestly, it always just kind of goes back to this feeling of, nah, I'm not going to feel bad. I'm not going to feel bad for doing that one thing, which is, in my case, storytelling, cameras, editing, directing, um, banging out basically the next feature. And so I'm really happy that you said that it's okay to, it, I think it's okay if we're good at like, good handful of things, but it's also really okay to focus on that one thing that is you, that you want to be really, like you said earlier, like you want to be really, 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 really good at that one thing. And so I think that's awesome, Charlie. And I just wanted to mention that, bro.
Like Lute Olson. Lute Olson can do one thing that's
Yep.
great, and he can coach college basketball.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, Miles Simon. I mean, I'll never forget when Arizona won the national basketball title and Billy Packer says Simon Says national championship. I mean, for that one season, Miles Simon, he had it all the way.
Yeah.
And that should be a documentary, actually. It was the Wildcats winning the NCAA title. So there's a lot of stories out there that, I mean, right now there's so much police controversy with
Yeah.
with this Minneapolis story. I mean, there's a story sitting right now in Mesa, Arizona, that you and I can do a documentary on right now, Edgar, that would just blow the top off of the state and maybe the country. And that's the killing of Daniel Shaver in the La Quinta hallway. You know about that one?
It sounds familiar. I can't really clearly remember it off the top of my
Oh,
head, but you say
look
La
at that one.
Quinta.
Daniel Shaver. I mean, I want to warn people, it's very graphic. And if you put that next to the knee to the neck yesterday, I'd love to hear a comparison between the two killings
Yeah.
that we've seen from the hands of the police.
Cool. So just to close out, Charlie, on Oliver Stone. So it sounds like that one or that encounter that you had with Oliver Stone and the time that you got with the guy. I mean, that's obviously something that's going to stay with you forever and influence you and let it influence you in the best of ways for your days to come, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how often do you get a one-on-one meeting with a three-time Oscar winner?
Wow.
I mean, from Midnight Express to Platoon to The Born on the Fourth of July, those are his three Oscars: one for writing, two for directing. And I mean, I know Oliver than Oliver knows himself.
Yeah.
I wrote a book. I mean, there was a book written on him called Stone, just Stone.
Mhm.
And I remember reading that. Talked about all of his movies up until like maybe 95 or something, and it talked about, very educational and informative. Talked about all his movies and the behind the scenes, and you learn so much from reading that one book. And if there's ever a mentor or an idol to look up to, why not choose a three-time Oscar winner that really touched and moved you in some way?